Hi, I'm Daniel Fisher. I'm Director of Product Optimization here at Sweetwater Sound, and today I want to show you a very bizarre pedal. This is the Harmonic Octave Generator by Electro-Harmonix, also known as the HOG. Primarily, this thing is, as it says, an octave generator where it will play 1 octave down, 2 octaves down, things like that. But it does so many more things. I've owned this pedal for about a year, and I still have not figured out everything I can do with it. In fact, just the other day I learned something entirely new about it, which is why I wanted to do this video for you, to show you some of that stuff. So first of all, just play it straight through. I've got a chord Pandora going just so I have a little bit of reverb. But as you can hear, I got my original octave. I can go an octave down. I can go 2 octaves down. I can do both. But then where it gets really interesting is I can go an octave up, or a fifth up, octave and fifth, 2 octaves, 2 octaves and a third, 3 octaves, 4 octaves. And I can do those in any amount that I want. Those of you who play keyboards might recognize those intervals as the drawbars on a Hammond organ. So a lot of the mathematics are very similar, and so you can use that to try and make organ type sounds, but you can go so much farther than that. So if I just kind of pull this up and come up with some things, now I'll show you what this expression pedal does. And one of the cool things about this is that the expression pedal comes with the unit. And the reason they do that is because it is such an important part of this pedal. So one of the things that it can do is octave bends. It can do octaves up, octaves down. Another thing you can do is step bends, so you can be a little more accurate, so it just does a whole step. You can do volume with it. But where it gets really bizarre is when you do this thing called freeze gliss. And what freeze gliss does is when you've got the pedal in one position, you can just play it as a regular guitar, but then you can hold a chord and freeze it, and now you can just play over that. Do a similar chord here. And if you bend the pedal, it'll all of a sudden go to your new chord. But where it gets really weird is when you start doing the in-between positions. So now you can play a chord and it'll slowly morph to your new chord. You know, this is for when you want to not sound like a guitar. By how much you push the pedal, you're changing the time it takes to glide from one note to another, which is very cool. You can also do things like standard stuff, like I set up an octave thing here so I can do like a bass guitar. You get some clean sound over here. And so now I can just it's handy if all of a sudden you got a little jam going, there's no bass player. I use that a lot. And then I want to tell you a little bit about this. This is the foot controller. This is optional. And what it does is it gives you 6 different locations that you can store every single position of these knobs, sliders, buttons. Even the position of the pedal is memorized. And if you have MIDI hooked up, you can even do things with MIDI pitch bend. Which means that you could sequence entire tracks of MIDI pitch bend that control this thing, which would just give you some amazing power to sync with other drum machines and stuff like that. So now let me show you even more that you can do with this thing. This thing also has a built-in wah-wah, so you can do standard wah-wah stuff, but it also has a synthesizer filter in it. So it has resonance and frequency, and you can do frequency sweeps. Some pretty strange stuff. And then what I recently discovered is that this thing accepts control voltages. So if you have Moog synthesizers or Moog or any pedals that send control voltages, you can automate it with this. In fact, even if you have Volta from Digital Performer or from Motu, you can actually sequence things into this as well, which is really wild. So to show that off, I'm going to take out this expression pedal and take a controller signal from this. And so now, for example, if I have a glide sound, I could play a chord and then play a different chord. And I'm doing that because I'm using the output of the control voltage output of an Etherewave Plus and using that instead of the pedal, which is very cool. Another thing I could use is like the Moog MP-201. This thing just sends out all types of controller information, control voltages. So for example, if I set this thing to octave bend, and right now I'm sending out a triangle wave. Now all of a sudden I'm going to get triangle wave bends. And I can send that to any parameter. So for example, if I send it to freeze gliss, sometimes the chords will change quickly, sometimes they're going to glide slowly. So some neat things you can do with that. Also, you can do other instruments. I thought, wouldn't it be wild to see what would happen if I did a glide on a drum sound? So here is one of my favorite toys, the Chord K-Oscillator. And if I do it dry, it sounds like this. Okay, now I'm going to kick this thing in, and I'm going to try and bring it in slowly here. So I'm going to have just the original octave. Now fifths, octaves, and now I can bend it. So I put the pedal in. And now watch what happens if I do a freeze gliss. This is what drums sound like, frozen in glide. So anyway, that is a bizarre pedal. My name is Daniel Fisher. This is the Electro-Harmonix HOG octave generator, and I hope you learned a little bit something about it. If you have any further questions, please contact your Sweetwater sales engineer. Thank you again for listening.